Everyone, welcome to Online Seller UK podcast. My name is Prabhat, founder at Online Seller UK. And today we've got a really interesting topic, and it's to do with Amazon Vendor Central. And we'll be talking about operational challenges. I'm joined by Bruno from Bluedotecommerce. And generally, I got to say, we were talking earlier, so there is very less information about Vendor Central out there. And today's discussion, I'm sure, will help vendor sellers to sort out their operational challenges. So without further ado, welcome to our podcast, Bruno.
Thank you, Prabhat. It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Excellent. So I think it's good for you to introduce yourself, your company, and what you do, and we'll dive into the topic.
Yes, I started my journey directly on e-commerce with Amazon Vendor 8 years ago. At the time, it was a huge challenge for me. I was coming from wholesale sales, not e-commerce related. It was a huge challenge that I engaged with the company that I worked. And it was a lot of fun, a lot of challenges at some point. So I started at the time in 2016 to manage 5 different accounts with the Pan EU Amazon vendor. And when I left the company 5.5 years later, I left them with 13 vendor central accounts spread all over the world. Then I moved to a different company that invited me to start. They got invited to be a vendor, and they hired me to set up all the processes. And then after that experience, pushed by some friends even from the Amazon side that I was helping. They pushed me to try to go and think how I could help vendors with my experience. So that was made last year with Bluedot. We are doing a lot of amazing things. So what we do is focus 100% on the operation side of being a vendor. There's a lot of compliances and manuals. So I work internally with vendors. We do everything end to end. We can set up the accounts. We train the cross-functional team too. That means that usually companies, they start making, in my opinion, an error. Usually they get invited to supply Amazon vendor. They are very proud. And they sometimes go with the idea that whatever team I have an online team, they do eBay, they do seller, they can do vendor. They can't. Sometimes we need a proper training, and that's where the challenges start. So they need a proper training from sales, finance, and logistics. I'll give you the example on finances with Amazon vendor. It's such a complex world. It will be so easy if Amazon will just simply pay our invoices, and whatever debit notes they have, we will repay them back. Amazon didn't make it easy. So the way they do it, they make deductions on payments. Consider this example. If you have 60 days payment terms, you invoice today, you will receive 60 days from now. This example usually happens when you start supplying Amazon. So during 60 days, you receive POs, you keep fulfilling, and you need to wait 60 days to get that payment back. And then vendors, when they start, they're always very surprised. It's very negative for them. I've encountered some of my clients when they reach to me, they're very unhappy. So 60 days later, they're expecting £10,000 payment, and then they receive 3,000. And why is that? Well, because Amazon went to that payment and deducted to start 2 months of the rebates of those co-op agreements. They can be in the form of a chargeback, damage allowance, or return allowance. And then there's the chargebacks. Usually they don't happen because you have a grace period, but then there's the shortage claims. So you were expecting those £10,000, and in your bank account, there's only 3,000. And if you don't have someone in accounts on that finance team with the proper training to get the trace back, what are they paying and what are they deducting? It's really complex, because in your bank account, you will only see a payment number. They don't even tell you what country it is. if you don't have this training to where to start, what to do, what to dispute, it gets really hard.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that goes down to the topic I was talking about, that how do we get that sort of right talent in the team? Because it looks like you've got to have that right talent. If not, we'll be, it may not be even successful vendor account.
You won't. And with Amazon, Amazon has different KPIs to measure a vendor. Confirmation rate is one of those KPIs. It's very important. Confirmation rate is the number of units you get requested on a PO versus the number of units that you accept and actually dispatch. So if you consider that even if you have experience on online, Amazon vendor is very specific. So yes, it starts with the talent. If a client of mine asks me for advice if they are hiring, I don't mind if that person doesn't come to us with no online experience. It might sometimes be a positive, because if you think that someone with online experience might get some confusion with different channels when it gets to vendor, or gets that frustration saying, this is super complex because he had an experience on a different online channel. So sometimes I tell my clients, look, let's just consider someone with different skills. And what are those skills? First of all, for a salesperson, and the salesperson for the Amazon cross-functional team is that main point of contact. For me, those skills need to be strong data analytics. First of all, data manipulation, because these days it's all about data, measuring it. Amazon expects from a vendor to take care of their business and also Amazon business. You are responsible to maintain between quotation marks Amazon net PPM, and there are different ways to do that. And with the proper training, people will do it. They will know what to measure. I've trained people that have experience with Vendor Central, but they had no concept about where to get this data, where to get this report, and what can I do with this data? What insights can I get from it? So I will start with that skills. After that, hands on the job. It needs to be someone that can work by himself. It needs to be someone with experience, not managing people, but since it will be the main point of contact of that cross-functional team, that person needs to have a strong personality to ask for different things. I'll give now the example of logistics. From my experience, logistics is always that part that shows a bit more resistance when starting supply vendor. And why is that? Because they are used to do things in certain way, and they've been doing it for years. But then you go to Amazon vendor, and that label needs to be in the box here or in the pallet there, and we need to tell Amazon what's inside each box. We need to submit an ASN. We need to print all the labels, and they usually, from my experience, and I love that challenge logistically, they show a bit more resistance. So that's another skill for the main point of contact from sales, to have that ability to bring people on board, to show them why do we need to do this different. It's for the greater good of the company. So those are the skills to start when hiring.
Okay, no, excellent. So I believe when we are forming a team, there will be different, like you mentioned, there's cross-function, there are different functions there. Perhaps we need to talk about some of the procedure or SOPs. So do you have any comments on that?
Yes. Well, SOPs, getting back to the operations, of course, that any company, majority of the times or all the times, is already doing business. It's usually brands. Amazon changed once again the way they are considering vendors. So they want to be closer with brands and manufacturers. So they already have their supply chains for their other customers set up, right? But then some challenges can start from that concept. So strong SOPs for me to Amazon need to be bespoke. It needs, when I start working with a new client and we go to review the operational side, the supply chain, I always start to measuring. If it's not a new vendor, to measure the past. And we get great insights from data through the web interface, the vendor web interface. And we start there. As an example, if I see high chargebacks for on-time compliance, I know that I need to review with my carrier what's going on. And usually what's going on is that probably we're not using a preferred carrier. Amazon has a group of preferred carriers. But we need to be aware that those preferred carrier list changes country by country. So if we start with a big name carrier, it might not be a preferred carrier to Germany, but it is to Italy. So we need to review this country by country, despite being the global view of Amazon Pan EU. We need to review all of these concepts. And then we need to train the operations too. I'm talking about even to the level of pick and pack in the warehouse. Amazon is very specific how they want to receive the goods in their fulfillment centers.
Mm-hmm.
If you have preparation requirements for the items you're selling to Amazon, you need to be aware of that. You need to consult the manual. If not, you will receive a chargeback. For me, and Prabhat, this is sometimes something that doesn't go well with some people, but for me, chargebacks are actually lessons. It's actually Amazon telling us, you're doing this wrong, please fix it. And I think they are fair. They give you 60 days of a waiving period when you start so that you can learn all of those lessons. After that waiving period, you will only receive a chargeback, the same chargeback, if you deliver to the same fulfillment center in a 90 days period. So think about this. I made an error, a prep requirement error or whatever to fulfillment center, BCN2 in Spain as an example. If I don't do that same error during 90 days, but I do that after 92 days, I won't receive a chargeback. It will be waived. But if I receive that into 60 days, then I will. I think it's a fair game, let's call it like that, that Amazon is playing. But from my experience, vendors get super frustrated. So the way I see chargebacks are actually a guidance for us to align our operations internally. And sometimes it's a challenge, but it's all there. If you can read the data and you know all the compliances, we can fix it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So thanks for talking us through about chargebacks and so on. I agree, like you said, it's a sort of a warning to
Yeah.
fix the operation. So let's go on to talking about if somebody's wanting to set up the vendor center account in the EU. So if you want to talk us through some of the things that a vendor needs to start thinking or plan that while they're setting up, that'll be really helpful.
Yes, well, it starts, where are they based? After Brexit, that's the huge difference. If you are a vendor based in the UK and you're starting with Pan EU, with the rest of the group of Pan EU, then you need to legally go and check. I'm talking about importer on record number for each country. Amazon only receives on Pan EU DDP, delivery duty paid. Then you need to start considering your supply chain. Once again, usually you already have customers or partners in all of those countries. It might not be a fit. We need to review it. So it starts to review that supply chain too. And then as you go, just keep reviewing that data, because Amazon will always keep feeding back to you if there's any issues, if there's any error. It's very important also when you start, and that happens a lot, when you are supplying one or two countries and then Amazon pushes you to go full Pan EU, you need to have a close relationship with your vendor too, specifically maybe 60, 90 days in the beginning. If you don't have it, you can still do it. And that's what I do. I help people and my clients to be as much as possible dependent on the vendor manager, because with a proper full training, you will avoid a lot of the things that vendors think that sometimes only the vendor can sort. It's not. If you know how to do it, you can do it yourself. And there's a lot of things, a lot of details that you think probably that only the vendor manager can help, but they won't. After reviewing that supply chain, keep monitoring it. Just go with your team do a weekly review. Get your cross-functional team in a table for the first 60, 90 days, once a week. What's going on? Get the logistic people feedback to you. Okay, I have these chargebacks. Logistic team, can you help me? Review the payments once they start. Finance team, please help me out here. I can see that there's some deductions from shortage claims. Let's build an SOP for the dispute process. And we need the help of the logistics team because we need to be in close contact with our carrier to get the documents that we need. And Prabhat, if you get invited to go full pan EU, get the proper training, get your SOPs internally, and everything will be okay.
Yeah, I think there has been some sort of influx of invitation after they closed their relationship with the distributor. You might have
Yeah,
seen that lately. So
yeah.
it's like you said, super important to get yourself trained on that. So thank you, Bruno, for talking to us today.
Thank
I
you.
think it's really been insightful. So for those who don't know about Amafest UK, it's happening in a few weeks' time in Brighton. That's 6th of October. And as Bruno said, the fantastic full team with Martin, Matt, and James will be there. And yeah, there will be all the information shared. So if you are a vendor account with, if you are experienced, you'll gain a lot of insight from Bruno and other vendor specialists there. And come and see us then. And Bruno, before we close, do you want to talk us through if somebody wants to talk to you and book a one-to-one, where is the best place to find you?
So the best place to find at the moment is through my email, bruno@bluedotecommerce.com. I am still a bit delay on my web page. Things have grown very, very fast. So just drop me an email, bruno@bluedotecommerce.com, and that's the quickest way.
Absolutely. Thank you very much again, Bruno, for your time, and
Thank
I'll
you.
speak to you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.